on the News Channel 5 network. This is OpenLine.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OpenLine tonight. It's one of my favorite nights of the month. We're going beyond the news, and I have my friend and colleague here, Chris Conte, joining me. Chris, thank you for rushing back from Sky 5 tonight.
It's fun. We landed at like 6:30, and then we just came back.
So traffic was okay, is what you're saying.
Traffic was okay, yeah. And actually, I don't know what. Maybe it's because everyone just knew that there was going to be that traffic today.
Yeah.
It was like it was a holiday today.
Well, just wait until later on this week. I feel like you're like, I've got to get to work. I've got to get to school.
I know.
We're talking about the mudslide, of course, if you didn't see our early evening newscast.
Landslide.
Oh, yes, sorry.
We're calling it a landslide.
Okay. Sorry. Chris has been up in Sky 5 the last 2 days.
Yeah, it's been a long couple of days. And the flooding, it's just been, I'm just glad the sun came out today.
Wasn't it so nice? It was very refreshing.
Honestly, yesterday, I got back home at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, I'm going to take a nap. And I was like, if I take a nap right now,
you're going to miss the sun.
I'm going to miss the sun. And I went out and I ran on the Greenway with the dog. And it was like everyone else in Nashville and their dog was out yesterday.
Everybody.
I'm glad that I decided to push through.
Absolutely. Listen, if you have not joined us for Beyond the News before, this is just our chance to let you get to know the folks that you see every day on News Channel 5, and for us to hear from you as well. So it is your chance to call in, ask questions of Chris, maybe of myself, but really just ask them.
You can ask Carrie questions too. It doesn't just have to be me.
About the job we do, why we do certain things, why we don't do other things. This is your chance to ask those questions that you've always had when you watch the news. We just want to remind you that we are normal people. We are part of this community, and I think both of us can say we are doing what we love to do.
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit, as Taylor's in the back, by the way, getting those phone calls lined up, and we have a new phone system.
I want at least one person to call in this hour.
We're going to have plenty. But we do have a new phone system. It takes a little longer, so if you get a lot of rings, just hang on. Taylor will get to you, I promise. But tell me about your career path. How did you get to this point?
So I went to undergrad at Boston University, and I graduated from there in 2009, and then from there I went to a small NBC station, KTTC, in Rochester, Minnesota, where it was cold as heck.
Oh, I know it.
and you had to do every job.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was a good place.
You learn a lot.
The population in Rochester is actually really intelligent because the Mayo Clinic's there, and it had a really close proximity to Minneapolis, which was nice. So you were able to kind of still get back to like a large city when you needed to.
Sure.
So I spent 2 years there, and then I left from Rochester, and I went to Rochester. I went from Rochester, Minnesota to Rochester, New York, and I worked there at an ABC station for a little bit in upstate. Also cold. It was actually, I think it was colder in upstate New York than it was in Minnesota.
Really?
Yeah, it was freezing.
Wow.
It was a little like Michigan, because you're on the lake, and you get all that lake effect snow, and then from there I came down here. And I have been here ever since. I've been here longer than you have.
You have been here longer. When did you get here?
2012.
Okay,
when I first started.
Okay, I was 2015.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, I'm old.
No, you are not.
I look around now and suddenly I'm realizing I'm real old.
You are one of our more veteran reporters in the newsroom, because this profession, just people move around a lot, very transient. You have stayed for a number of years. That means you've been here for a number of contracts, which means you must be happy.
I am. I am. And I really like it.
This is a special station.
It is. And when Ron retired, Ron Howes, I'm sure people remember Ron Howes.
Yes.
Our old meteorologist. I sat down with him for a little while back then, and I said, because he was here for 35 years, and I said, Ron, why did you keep coming back? And he said, I always felt appreciated. And I thought about that, and I said, well, why do I always keep coming back? And the reason that I've kind of landed on is that I always feel trusted here. That I've felt trusted by people that are watching. I felt trusted by the people that are around us in terms of being able to do good work and stories. And I think that's why I've been here for so long. I'll be honest with you, I thought I was going to be here for 2 years and then gone, and here I am. And Nashville is just...
It's growing and changing, becoming bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and I feel like I kind of came in right as it was on its way up, as the growth was starting. And having been here now for 7 years, I feel like I've been a part of that growth. Like I really feel invested in the city and in the growth and kind of what's been happening here. And so I think it makes covering the news here more important, because you feel like I do feel like I am really genuinely a part of this community.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that we all do this for different reasons. We get drawn into journalism for different reasons. you no question have a storyteller's heart. I mean, you see that in your
I try.
reporting. You do, I mean, I think it's just so obvious. I think it's obvious to everybody at home. It's obvious from the awards sitting on your mantle at home or wherever you keep all those Emmys. But can you tell people how you approach each story?
You know, there's a couple of sayings. I have like a couple of sayings on my computer, and one is like, is there a way to make room for extra compassion here? Which I always try to think about that, even on, you know, bland stories. Yeah. And then the other way I always try to approach a story is, I mean, there are so many of us out there doing the same thing, and so I always think to myself, how can I tell this story differently than the way everyone else is doing it? And hopefully that will either keep people's attention or make them care a little bit more, or maybe make them feel something. And here we have the, you know, we have the secret weapon, I would say, of our photojournalists that are just so incredibly talented.
They're amazing.
And they add another layer of just empathy and heart to everything.
And they have their own talent, and that's why they are photojournalists, because they see a story. While I would say that sometimes we feel a story, or we write a story in our head as we're interviewing people, they see it.
Yeah.
That is not a talent that I have. Like, I'll come back and look at shots and go, oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And it makes a difference.
It does.
I mean, you know, if you being in TV, if you don't, if I just write something, you know, I could write a Hemingway novel, but but if the pictures don't match it, it doesn't matter. You know, it's worthless. So, and that is, you know, another reason why I think why this place is so special is because we get to work with those folks.
Yeah.
And it did the memo that was hanging downstairs in 2012 when I came here from our boss Sandy was, Chris Conte is joining the News Channel 5 team. He's especially excited to be working with our talented photojournalists.
Oh, and so you won some bonus points right there.
Well,
they're like, who is this kid?
And 7 years later, that's still the truth.
It is still the truth.
It really is.
So you mentioned that you only were going to stay here for a couple of years. That was your thought.
That was my thought.
Yeah.
And
So, and I'm
changed.
not saying that you're going to retire here, because that would be really odd in this business to do so. But what are your dreams and aspirations right now in this business?
I mean, I have just really enjoyed reporting here and telling stories, and on the side I'm getting my graduate degree in journalism because I love journalism so much that I want to go teach it at some point.
Oh, that'd be good.
So
you'd be a great
why
teacher.
Not keep passing it on? You know, if you
what
can.
are you getting this through Harvard or Stanford
Through
or something
Harvard.
like that?
Online, it's fine.
Through Harvard. It's very impressive.
Yeah.
In fact, when I said, will you be our guest tonight, he's like, well, I may have some homework to do. I have to see.
I have been having class on Monday nights, so my apologies for the absence the last couple of times.
I understand.
But it's been fun. It's been a really good learning and growing experience. It's really pushed my writing a little bit more.
Really?
Boundaries, yeah. And it's just made me, I think, because sometimes you find a comfort level in writing, and so going back to school really pushes you again to try new things and experiment.
Okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What's one new thing that you've been pushed to do or try or thinking about?
Let's see. We had a story. I had to write a story for class a couple weeks ago. And it was called The Invisible Person, and so you just had to go somewhere like a market or whatever, and you just had to observe people. You couldn't ask them questions. You just had to write a story about what you saw. It was just weird because you couldn't ask people names or what they were doing there. It was purely just on observation and what you were seeing.
Where did you go?
I just went to a construction site, and I just kind of stood around and watched what was going on.
Like calling the police. There's this weird guy just stalking us. Do you like how it turned out?
I do. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's, you know, in the class setting, there's like 16 of us, so we're always workshopping and critiquing, and sometimes, you know, doing stuff that in the day-to-day process of news, you don't really get to the time sometimes to do that. So it's been nice.
And I'm going to go back even before your first job. You always wanted to do this,
I
right?
did.
There are old videos of young Chris
there
Conte.
are some good. We should have pulled those.
We should have. I think I've seen one. I think you've shown me.
8-year-old Chris Conte doing some faux reporting in the family living room.
Tell me about this. How did this come about?
You know, I always, even when I was like 6 or 7 or 8, I remember spending like my snow days in Boston just infatuated with the news. I mean, I would watch wall-to-wall snowstorm coverage because I just loved it so much. And I don't know if it was the weather aspect of it, or it was the TV part of it, or the reporting, but I mean, that is that is literally what I would do. And then apparently made some videos when I was a kid.
You were pretty darn good for being so young.
I mean,
you really were. You had a little production going on. It's very, very
We should have pulled that video, Taylor. It would have been.
Hindsight 2020. Hey, we're going to jump to the lines because this is Open Line. Ralph is on the line. Ralph, what's your question for Chris tonight?
Hey, Ralph.
Yes, I'd like to know your thoughts about covering the executions that you covered here in Nashville, please.
Great question.
Yeah.
You and I have both done these.
It was one of the most interesting things that I have ever experienced because you know, the execution.
Let's explain to folks that in states that have the death penalty, there's a state law saying that there are a number of media witnesses, and it's just kind of to be accountable.
Right.
Okay.
So there was a lottery process, and I ended up getting chosen to go in to actually witness the execution, and so it was for me. It was kind of I almost had to just split it into two things, which was, A, yes, this person was losing their life, but B, it was still a work assignment. So. I think to push away the fact that like you were watching someone's last moments on this earth, the way you kind of I compensated that in my mind was I need to dive into this as heavily as I can and do this story as much justice as possible. So like in this case, I mean, from the moment we got into Riverbend, the maximum security prison, I mean, I was just feverishly taking notes. And I mean, almost quite literally had my head just buried in my notepad trying to write. And, you know, it was, I think, and I talked, this is a little gruesome, but I mean, I talked to, I think it was, there was almost a separation in that when he actually was electrocuted, there was a cloth over his face. So you couldn't actually see his face the moment that he died. So for me, that kind of almost dehumanized it in a way.
Yes, absolutely.
And then once we left, it was, you know, it was just, you have to focus on this from a work standpoint and storytelling standpoint. And, oh, by the way, I mean, you are accountable to tell the rest of the people in Tennessee how this went, because, you know, that they need to know if anything went wrong or didn't go wrong, or, and, you know, there were a couple people there with me who I talked to afterwards who really struggled with it a couple days later. I mean, you know, it's, the gravity of something like that is pretty heavy. I don't know if I would do it again. Yeah. But it is, and sometimes it's weird. Sometimes I just almost forget that it happened, and you know, like until someone like this brings it up, you forget. Oh, I watched an execution. Right. It's in the laundry list of things that you experience.
Like weird and bizarre and once in a lifetime things you experience. And I have done it as well. I did it when I was a reporter in Kentucky many, many years ago. And I don't think I personally dealt with it until I got here, because in Michigan, when I worked there, which was after my stop in Kentucky, we didn't have any death penalty cases. Came here, and when they started back up again is when it really hit me. Yeah. I mean, you are seeing someone be killed.
Yeah, it is strange.
And yet, I do believe that it is so very important to have journalists in that room to cover it. I also believe that there is so much more to be seen that we are not allowed. Yeah. But I think it's important to recognize those personal feelings too, and say, you know, and give it time to breathe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good question.
Yeah, Ralph,
Thanks,
thank you for calling in about that. Again, this is Open Line. We're going to take a quick break. If you have a question for Chris about why he does what he does, why we tell stories in ways that we do, give us a call. We would love to hear from you tonight. 615-737-PLUS is the number. We're coming right back.